Hey guys, it's Dan with Philosophical Fishing, the channel completely dedicated to benzo damage and recovery. Today I wanted to talk about that feeling that you get in early stages of benzo damage where you're just like, man, am I ever going to feel good again? Am I ever going to feel okay in my skin? And you have this feeling that you're just so damaged, your brain and body are so burned by the benzos, and you just know that you're not the same person that you used to be. And I remember feeling that way so much of the time in early benzo damage and early benzo withdrawal that I just felt like I was a shell of my former self. And I was so scared that I was never going to feel good again. And I was just stuck in this perpetual state of misery for the rest of my life. And that was one of the scariest thoughts of all for me, is that I was just never going to get better. And I would think to myself, you know, if this is my life now, then I don't even want to go on. What's the point? I'm so miserable and I'm so badly beaten down by this drug that I don't think that I can keep going on like this. And for those of you that don't know, when I came off of benzos, I was in a treatment center in South Florida, and they took me off of benzos in about 8 days after being on Klonopin for 13 years. I was also on Suboxone. I was also on Lamictal. I was also on Pristique. I was on Vyvanse. And I think there was another psychiatric drug somewhere in that mix. And I came off of everything all at once in 8 days, which is basically cold turkey off of everything. And I just completely lost my mind. If you want to learn more about that, you can go back and check out my video on my psychosis experience, where I delve deeply into what that experience was like actually in the hospital and in the psych ward where I was at. And so I was in this treatment center for about 42, 43 days. And when it came time for my release, I was looking at going into a halfway house because my home life was in such turmoil with my wife and my family that she didn't want me to come back home at that time and be around her and my daughter, which is completely understandable from the way that I was and the way that I was living for so long. So I was looking to go into a halfway house, and I couldn't really find a halfway house to live at. So my sister took me in and she let me stay at her house. But I was just so grateful to be off of benzos and to be out of that treatment center and out of the psych ward. And I had just gone through this huge transformational spiritual experience. And I remember having a great deal of gratitude and thankfulness that at least I had somewhere quiet and peaceful and safe to be. And I was also hugely damaged by benzodiazepines. And I don't want to talk about, you know, all the symptoms that I had and everything that was going on, but suffice it to say that I was absolutely miserable to the point where when I drove my car back home to go see my family for the first time after coming off of benzos, I really wanted to end it. And I remember I had about a 3.5, 4 hour drive back home from South Florida back to the Tampa area where I lived. And I wanted to drive my car off the road straight into a tree and just end it. Take my seatbelt off, get the car up to as high a mile an hour as I could, and just drive it straight into a tree and just end it, because I was so hurt by the benzodiazepine withdrawal that I was absolutely miserable. And you guys know, if you're going through it or you've been through it, it's indescribable. The amount of suffering in the early stages is just astronomical. It's beyond description. Even 7 years out, and I've talked about this so many times, I cannot accurately describe exactly how that felt in the first few months off of benzodiazepines. And on that drive home, I was just so miserable. I thought that the only way that I could possibly alleviate this suffering was to just end it. Even though I had this miraculous spiritual experience, I think that having gone through that spiritual experience gave me enough buoyancy to keep me alive and to keep me going, because I could feel that something deep down inside of me had definitely changed. And I knew that I was a changed person and I was a new person. But still, even having had this massive spiritual awakening that I had, the heaviness and the weight and the misery of the benzodiazepine withdrawal and the benzo damage was still so difficult to deal with. And that first day that I drove home, I got in that rental car and I drove from South Florida up to Tampa, and I cried the entire way there. I remember my daughter had just turned 4 years old while I was in treatment, so I missed her 4th birthday, and I hadn't seen her for about 2 months, so I was about to be reconnected with her and with my wife. The amount of anxiety that I had on this drive was absolutely just indescribable, and I decided that I wasn't gonna kill myself on this drive, that I was actually gonna go and meet my daughter. And I think that's another thing that helped me keep going, is that I had a wife and a daughter that I wanted to get home to, and I didn't want to end my life that day. And so I kept going, and I got home, and I had this beautiful 4-year-old girl who was just exuberant and full of life and wanted to play with me and jump around and wrestle and do all this stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, I am so damaged right now. I can barely move. I could barely talk. I could barely function. And I didn't know how to relate to her. It was so hard. I felt so much guilt, so much shame for what happened to me and what I had done to myself with these drugs, even though a lot of it was unintentional and it was through my psychiatrist. Still, I felt all this tremendous weight and guilt and this horrible, horrible feeling about myself and my life and what I had done. And I felt like a terrible father. I felt like a failure as a husband. And I felt like, how the hell do I go on from here where I'm at now, 34 years old? I didn't have a job. I just came out of rehab. My brain was completely battered. My body was wrecked from all the drugs. How the hell do I go from here, even through one day? How do I get from here to the next day? Never mind, how the hell am I gonna, I lost my house. I didn't have really anywhere to stay because my wife pretty much had kicked me out of our townhome that we got, and I was staying at my sister's, and that was not going to be a permanent solution. So really, I didn't even have a place to go. So I was scared. I was really, really scared. And there was so much uncertainty at that time that all I could do was try to make it through one day at a time, literally. Just one day. That's all I could think about. I could not think about the next day. I could not think about next month, next year. How the hell am I even going to go back to work? Because I can't even talk. I can't even think. I can't even put words together. In the last video, I talked about brain lock, and I had that so bad that most of the time I would just sit on the couch and I would be silent and I really wouldn't say much. And the thought that would keep coming to me was that, is this ever going to get better? Am I ever going to heal from this? Am I ever going to get past this? Am I ever going to get to a place where I feel somewhat normal again? Because I don't even know what normal is anymore. I was in the fog of benzos for so long that coming out of it, I just felt like I was going naked through the world, like exposed to everything. I had no more insulation on my body to shield me from things that hurt me, from past traumas that I experienced, from my own emotions. I had to feel everything now. Everything came back to me all at once like a tidal wave and just washed over me. And how do you process all of that while going through benzo withdrawal? That's part of what makes this all so freaking hard, is because it's not only on the physical front, it's on the emotional front, it's on the past trauma front, and you're dealing with this all at once while going through the most horrific drug withdrawal on the face of the freaking planet. And that's what's so hard to describe to people. It's like you can't find words to describe what that feels like. Trying to process all of that while going through the absolute most horrendous physical, mental, spiritual, emotional upheaval of this drug withdrawal. It's just absolutely freaking horrendous. And that's why I wish some of these documentaries that have been made that we've all seen on Netflix, and they never talk about this. They never even get close to talking about this stuff, how heavy it is. And the thought that while going through all that, am I ever going to feel okay again? Am I ever going to feel normal? Am I going to be able to function? You know, at one point I actually had a really, really great memory. I used to perform drama plays, and I would have sometimes upwards of 300-400 lines, and I would be able to memorize them all verbatim very quickly and recite that. And I would get on stage and I would perform and I would be able to do all that stuff. And I was always the first person to memorize everything, all my lines, my blocking, where I was supposed to be, everything. I'm also a musician. I never forgot notes. I never forgot words. I never forgot lyrics. I always had a really, really great memory. And benzos just erased that. I mean, that went right out the window. My memory since coming off of benzos was, when I first came off, really, really bad. It's gotten much, much better. So if I can tell you one thing today that's going to help you, it would just be to hold on and keep going, keep trucking. Just put one foot in front of the other. The days turn into weeks, the weeks turn into months, the months turn into years, and before you know it, you've got a year under your belt, you've got 2 years behind you, and you're starting to feel better and better and better. The symptoms begin to slowly fade away. They slowly start to drop off. You start to get your memory back. You start to get your emotions back. You start to even out. You start to level out. You find healing. You find things that work for you, that help you navigate through life and facilitate healing from the benzo damage. Early on and still today, I practiced a lot of meditation. That really, truly helped me and still helps me stay in good stead today. It's helped me with concentration. It helps me with memory. It helps me with my emotional state. I cannot overstress meditating. If you don't have a meditation practice, email me, philosophicalfishing@gmail.com. I've made a meditation video. Search on YouTube. You can find so many meditation videos. I also highly recommend an app called Insight Timer, which has tons of free meditations on it. It's awesome. Definitely check that out. And tell yourself this every single day. I'm healing. I'm getting better. I am one day closer to healing. Every symptom that I have is my body repairing. It's like a building being rebuilt from the inside out. You know, your body has torn out the old beams. It's gotten rid of all the rusty rebar. They had to take out all the old drywall. They've had to take out the faulty plumbing, and all that stuff is being rebuilt inside your body. And it's painful and it sucks and it's horrendous to feel. But that's what I would tell myself every time I would have a wave or some really, really bad symptoms, or a day where I'm just not feeling it and I've got all this bad stuff going on from the benzos. I would always tell myself that this is my body healing. This is my body being repaired. This is everything inside of me that has to be reinforced, rebuilt, and I'm coming out of this a new and better person. And what you tell yourself, what you put in your mind, and the words that you speak to yourself are powerful. Words have power and energy. So pay attention to the words that you're speaking about yourself and what you're saying about your body as you're healing, because it's important. And those things over time will start to add up, and your body listens to you. Your body listens to the words that you say. I know it sounds crazy, but it really does. If you're constantly telling yourself, I'm so damaged, you know, this is going to last forever. I'm never going to get past this. Oh my God, this sucks. And you'll have days like that too, and I certainly did. But the point is, you want to try to return to a level where you're saying, okay, yes, this is hard. Yes, this sucks. Yes, this is very, very, very difficult right now. But I know that this is my body healing. I know that I'm going through this metamorphosis, and I know that I'm going to come out the other side of this better than when I even went in. And that's possible because that's what happened with me. Honestly, today, I'm better than even before I took benzos in so many ways. Not my memory. My memory is not as good as it ever was, but so many things about me today are so much better than before I even ever took benzos. So it's possible. And I know so many of you on this channel who have commented and have reached out. I know Bob Barbarino. Look at his comments. He talks about this all the time, about being rebuilt from the inside out, and how this is actually facilitating him becoming a better person every single day. Even through the hard times, even through the hard days, weeks and months, and sometimes years on this, you can still heal from it, and you still can come out the other side much better than when you even went in. Believe me, it's so possible. I did it, and I'm nothing special, guys. Honestly, there's going to be days when your mind tells you that you're too far gone, that you're too damaged to ever come back from this, and that's just not true. You will come back from this. You can come back from this, and I'm living proof of it, and I'm not the only one. There's been so many other people who have gone through it and have come out the other side. Have faith today that if you're going through it, you're going to get better. You're not stuck wherever you're at, especially if you're early on. You're definitely not stuck there. Just keep going, keep trucking, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Comment in the section below. There's so much support on this channel. You guys have been so awesome, reaching out to each other, helping each other, encouraging each other. That encourages me to keep making these videos. And like I always say, as long as these videos are helpful, I'm going to keep making them. So as always, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.